She was 15 years old, 100 pounds soaking wet, and the best gymnast most people in America had never heard of. Julissa Gomez had grown up in San Antonio, Texas, the daughter of a teacher and a welder who had once worked the migrant farm fields of Laredo. Her parents had scraped and saved and moved across state lines so their little girl could train under one of the most famous coaches in the world. By the time she was 10, she was already in Bela Karolyi's gym in Houston, learning the sport alongside girls who would one day stand on Olympic podiums. By 13, she was competing nationally, earning a spot on the U.S. national team, and sports journalists were already comparing her trajectory to Mary Lou Retton. The 1988 Seoul Olympics were not a dream anymore. They were a destination. But the sport she loved was not built around keeping her safe. It was built around scores, and the people responsible for her had already made a calculation that would end her life. In mid-1987, Julissa left Karolyi's program and moved to Missouri to train under coach Al Fong. Her father, Ramiro, relocated his entire life to be with her. Her mother stayed behind in Texas. The family split itself in two without complaint because Julissa's dream was worth any sacrifice they could make. At the new gym, one problem was visible to everyone and spoken about by no one. The Yurchenko vault was destroying her in practice. Her feet would miss the springboard. Her body would drift. One former teammate, Shel Stack, said later that anyone watching could tell it was not a safe vault for Julissa to be doing, and that someone along the way should have stopped her. But nobody stopped her because the Yurchenko produced higher scores, and higher scores meant the Olympics, and the Olympics were the goal, not the girl. The goal. In May 1988, Julissa traveled to Tokyo for the World Sports Fair. She had qualified for the vault final. On the surface, everything looked right. But during the qualifying rounds, she was overheard talking about Elena Mukhina, the Soviet gymnast who had broken her neck attempting a dangerous skill 2 weeks before the 1980 Moscow Olympics and spent the rest of her life in a wheelchair. Nobody recorded exactly what Julissa said or why, but she said it. And the next morning she walked into that venue, chalked her hands, and began her warm-up runs. The vault final had not started yet. This was the safe part, the rehearsal. On one of her practice runs, her foot slipped off the edge of the springboard. She slammed head first into the vaulting horse at full sprint speed. The bones in her neck broke. The damage to her spinal cord was instant and complete. Julissa Gomez hit the horse and never moved her arms or legs under her own power again. Medical staff reached her within seconds. It did not matter. She was rushed to a Tokyo hospital and placed on a ventilator. She could not breathe on her own. She could not speak. She communicated by blinking her eyes while her mother pointed to letters on a board, one at a time, slowly building words. The first thing she spelled out was whether she would walk again. Not the Olympics, not gymnastics, just whether she would ever stand on her own feet. Her mother had no answer that was both true and kind. Then the second disaster arrived. During her treatment in Tokyo, the oxygen hose connected to her ventilator became disconnected, Nobody noticed for 15 hours. By the time it was discovered, the brain damage was permanent. Julissa slipped into a coma. Her family brought her home to Houston and cared for her themselves for 3 years because she was theirs and there was nothing else to do. On August 8th, 1991, she died of an infection. She was 18 years old. She never saw Seoul. She never walked again. After she died, the sport changed. Safety mats were added around the springboard. In 2001, the narrow vaulting horse was replaced with a wider, more stable table. Real changes. Lives almost certainly saved. But they came after the funeral. They came because a 15-year-old girl was pushed past the point of safety in pursuit of a medal, and the question the sport never fully answered. Who bears responsibility when a child is sent into the air unprepared was left open for the next tragedy to ask all over again. 37 years later, a 19-year-old boy from East Java packed his bag and boarded a plane to Russia. His name was Naufal Albari, and he was one of the best male gymnasts Indonesia had ever produced. He had grown up in Gresik, training in a sport his country barely followed, showing up every day for thousands of hours because somewhere ahead of him there was a World Championship, a Southeast Asian Games, and the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. He could see it all from where he stood. In July 2025, just 3 months before the accident, he made his international debut at the Asian Championships in South Korea, competing on floor exercise and pommel horse against the best gymnasts on the continent. He was 19 years old, and he belonged there. On September 1st, 2025, Naufal and 4 teammates arrived at the Berdysy Palace of Sports in Penza, Russia, for an intensive training camp funded by the Indonesian Youth and Sports Ministry. 6 weeks of elite preparation before the World Championships in Jakarta. The facility had the equipment, the staff, the foam pits built to catch gymnasts when skills went wrong. There was no reason to think anything other than hard training lay ahead. On September 13th, Naufal went to the high bar to work on something new. He launched, went into the skill, and something went wrong in the air. The angle was off. The rotation did not land where it needed to. He came down into the foam pit wrong, and the way his neck met the foam at that speed and angle turned the safety net into the source of the injury. He was taken to G.A. Zakarian Hospital in Penza and placed in intensive care. His federation coordinated frantically from Jakarta. His family crossed the world to reach him. His 4 teammates kept training in the same gym because the World Championships were coming and the schedule did not stop. For 12 days, Naufal fought. Then on September 25th, 2025, he died in that Russian hospital, 10,000 kilometers from home. He was 19 years old. His body was prepared according to Islamic tradition and repatriated to Gresik, where he had grown up dreaming of Los Angeles. The Russian investigation examined the equipment and the safety standards at the training center. The Federation's own inquiry concluded quickly. The athlete had not been prepared for the complex element he attempted. That finding placed the weight on Naufal himself. It said nothing about who approved the session. Nothing about who watched a 19-year-old attempt something new and said nothing. Two gymnasts, 37 years apart. A girl who missed a springboard her coaches knew she could not hit consistently. A boy who attempted a new skill at a national team camp with an investigation that blamed his readiness. In both cases, the people in charge were present. In both cases, the athlete paid the price. The sport made changes after Julissa died. An investigation was opened after Naufal died. But the real question, the one that neither outcome fully answers, is how many gymnasts are being pushed right now, today, towards skills they are not ready for. In gyms where nobody is willing to be the person who stops